For more on this, we're now joined in the studio by independent political and economic affairs commentator Einar Tangen. Einar, welcome to Global Watch. Well, first of all, something I don't quite understand here is that Canada has some of the highest vaccination rates in the world. According to reports, only 15% of Canadian truckers are not vaccinated. So how come this very high vaccination rate has led to something like this, translating to these huge protests against vaccine?
Basically 2 years of frustration. People are, just feeling tired of the virus. Unfortunately, the virus is not feeling tired of them. It's not people who have really thought about this. It's morphed. It's kind of like all these conspiracy groups, QAnon and things like that. What started as a spark has kind of led to this kind of popular uprising. Everybody who has a gripe against the government has now joined in. So this is more a symbol of dissatisfaction than it is anything rational.
Mm-hmm. How would you see the government replying to all the demands by the truckers? Not only the truckers now, other people are joining in.
Yeah, well, there's no
so
reply.
far they haven't made many feedbacks.
Well, they have a list, a very long list of things they want, which are, frankly, a little strange. That's not really the issue here. I mean,
strange by what sense?
Well, I mean, they're asking for things that they just literally are not within the control of the government. Give up on a COVID vaccine. All of these things that are necessary for the protection of the privacy. Remember, Canada has a national health system, so every time one of these people gets sick because they don't want to take the virus, they think that's their right. Everyone else pays for it. Especially if they die, there's going to be insurances and things like that. So, there's this struggle between this idea that you have rights, but what are your responsibilities? And right now you don't see that. But, one interesting part to this is that you see how the Canadian government is reacting to this. When there's a riot in your town, it's very serious, and you have to do something drastic to approach it. But when it happens in Hong Kong, that's a different story.
Right, and I think you are pretty right about the restrictions fatigue in Canada. As truckers paralyzed the Canadian capital, Ottawa, several of the nation's provinces actually announced it was time to roll back some of the restrictions. Do you think the central government would agree to that?
Well, the question is, should they? I mean, you cannot, we've seen the efforts by politicians to use politics to battle the virus. It just doesn't work. So this idea that you should sort of give in to these populist demands, this has been the problem all along. If countries had done exactly what China had done and taken the precautions, we would not be in the situation we are in today with the variants, etc. You wouldn't have the kind of economic damage that has been done. But instead, these politicians keep giving in to whatever is easiest. And unfortunately, that is prolonging the pandemic and also the frustrations which are giving rise here.
Then 75%, about the practical aftermath of this protests, 75% of Canada's exports go to the US, and this bridge the truckers have shut down usually handles around 8,000 trucks a day. That's a lot. So what impact could this protest, if it continues, would have on bilateral trade?
Well, right now people are focusing on the auto industry. This is $100 billion a year choke point that we're talking about. And right now the auto industry has only about 2 days of inventory which they can work off. Now the auto industry has been hit hard already with the shortages of supplies, et cetera, supply chain issues that were created mostly by the United States itself. And now they're battling, these truckers who don't seem to understand that if these companies go out of business or they lose business, so will the truckers. So there's not any kind of rational way of approaching this. This is simply more emotion caused by frustration, caused by inadequate responses of governments.
All right. Thank you very much. Our independent political and economics affairs commentator, Mr. Einar Tangen. Thank you very much for your insight.